Hey, it's Anton. I just finished watching the second episode of season 3 of Better Call Saul, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So this episode starts out with a pretty cryptic intro. I wasn't sure what was going on. It was pretty mysterious. You know, it panned into the early shot of, oh my god, his name is slipping me. It was such an intense scene of Chuck making the tea. And you wonder what's going on. You know, all the lights are off. He's being very secretive, making sure all the doors are locked. And at the end of the episode, it's revealed why he's so meticulous in making sure all the doors are locked. And then we see a man who seems to be playing solitaire by himself, and he and Chuck engage in a sort of, very casual, unimportant conversation about, kind of a trivial point of why they put holes in used Vegas decks of cards. And then they proceed to turn off the lights in Chuck's house. And this is a mystery which I was kind of intrigued about. I was like, I wonder how long it's going to take for us to be revealed what the master plan is behind Chuck's madness. And we found out by the end of the episode. So the first scene after the intro was Mike following the tracking device to see who took the tracking device from him, from his gas cap in his car. And to tell you the truth, I thought it was a little bit slow moving forward, watching Mike tail this guy. I thought it was, the episode did start out a little bit slow, and when we finally got to the reveal that this person he's tailing was pulling into the Los Pollos Hermanos restaurant, it really wasn't that exciting of a reveal, to be completely honest. I've seen Breaking Bad way too many times to know that the structure of that building like the back of my own hand. And even though it waited to the very end of the act to pan and display that it was a Los Pollos Hermanos restaurant, there wasn't any visible logos when Mike was looking through his binoculars at the man, it was kind of an obvious reveal. So I thought the beginning of the episode did start out a little bit slow, but it picked up very quickly after that, and I really enjoyed the rest of the episode. So in the second act, following Mike's tailing the guy who put the tracking device on his gas cap, we see a Breaking Bad character reemerge in Better Call Saul. I thought this was one of my favorite scenes the entire episode, to see Jimmy and Kim interview Francesca. I thought this was an absolutely great scene. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I really enjoyed to see the kind of almost good cop, bad cop relationship Jimmy and Kim had when they were interviewing Francesca. I thought it was classic Jimmy, who he just wanted to hire this person immediately. Really didn't care too much about their credentials. As long as they weren't a mass murderer or a bank robber, I'm pretty sure he would have hired whomever was applying for the job. And Kim, of course, being her more meticulous self, wanted to really go in depth of these candidates and wanted to get a really as good of a possible candidate as they could to work at their law. And it's interesting to see that when we first are introduced to Francesca in Better Call Saul, that she transforms as well. She seems to be almost a very normal kind of law-abiding citizen, but by the time we meet her in Breaking Bad, she's a corruptible person who commits crimes for Saul Goodman. So I thought it was an absolutely great to see her come back in Breaking Bad. It really was probably was my favorite part of the episode, to see the back and forth dynamic between the two of them. I thought just the interjections that Jimmy was giving her when she was working the phones to be more folksy, I just was laughing hysterically. The Cracker Barrel references were just wonderful. So yeah, it was absolutely great to see Francesca back in Better Call Saul. The following scene, we see Mike and Jimmy conspiring together to find out who this guy is who's tailing Mike. Mike sends Jimmy on a mission to find out what he's doing inside the Los Pollos Hermanos restaurant. And again, this scene also was it was a little bit obvious. Again, I didn't think it was too suspenseful. I could kind of see that there was probably gonna be some sort of maybe subtle gesture with Gus and this person who I believe, we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure this is one of Gus's henchmen who's working for Gus and goes in the restaurant. I'm pretty sure that because Jimmy was acting so obviously conspicuous, kind of staring and glancing and looking over his shoulder and moving, it was almost too obvious. And Gus is too smart of a character for him not to pick up on Jimmy's subtleties. Gus is one of the smartest characters in the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul universe. So I thought, okay, this is way too obvious, his motions. I know for a fact Gus is probably going to cancel whatever transaction is most likely going to take place. And I thought it was a really interesting little scene when we saw Jimmy thinking he was outsmarting Gus, who was a nobody to him at this point, by checking the garbage to see if the henchman left something in the garbage by doing this little watch ploy, which Jimmy thought he was probably being pretty smart in fooling this, lowly manager. But little does he know, this is Gustavo Fring, and who is quite a smart character and a illustrious drug dealer of methamphetamine. Following this, we see the plot transition back to Jimmy and Chuck. We see Ernie finally telling Jimmy that he heard the tape. And I didn't notice this in the episode 1 of season 3, but after Ernie accidentally, quote unquote, plays the tape, which implies that Jimmy switched the numbers on the Mesa Verde account, I didn't notice this at first, but after the scene that it makes it appear that Chuck is startled and taken aback by this, he gives a look after he tells Ernie why he's bound by confidentiality. And after that I knew this is a long con that Chuck is partaking against Jimmy in. So when it's finally revealed to Jimmy that Chuck has the secret tape of him confessing to this crime, told by Ernie to Kim, and then told from Kim to Jimmy. Jimmy, I think he feels really betrayed by this. He can't believe that Chuck kind of used his own evil against him. Jimmy's own evil against him. I think it really kind of tears Jimmy up inside. And he's really holding this in. And eventually we see this anger burst. This uncontrollable anger burst by Jimmy. And it's interesting, when Kim finds out this knowledge, I thought she would be more panicked and kind of nervous about the situation, but she was very methodical and meticulous about how they should go moving forward. And she talks to a former professor, and she looks at all the legal ramifications, and she's almost calm after doing this, because she realizes Chuck really can't do anything. This tape's not admissible in court. There's really nothing they can do. They're probably in the clear. But again, Jimmy just keeps bottling up his anger that eventually he snaps. So at the end of the episode, we're finally revealed to Chuck's long con of hiring this man and we met in the beginning of the episode, who we now find out is a private investigator, who Howard comes to the house and kind of tells him, I don't think this plan is going to work. We're paying this guy all this money. For what? Jimmy hasn't stolen the tape yet, which Chuck wants him to do. He wants him to steal the tape and have the private investigator catch him in the act, and then therefore he'll go to jail and be arrested for that crime. So at the end of the day, Jimmy's emotions got the best of him. He fell right into Chuck's plan, and he was caught by Chuck breaking into his house and destroying the tape with the witness of the private investigator, as well as Howard Hamlin. And I think the end of this episode really reveals a major theme which I see in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and that major theme is major characters not being able to control their emotions. Characters like Walter White and Gustavo Fring, their downfall comes from just not being able to control their emotions. Walter White is such a calculated, thoughtful character, and when his downfall finally occurs, when Jesse foils him with the plot to burn his money without thinking, he lets the emotions get the best of him, and that eventually leads to his downfall. Additionally, with Gustavo Fring, he's a very thoughtful and deep and smart character, but his emotions got the best of him when he thinks that Hector Salamanca went to the police to rat him out. Additionally, with Mike, he could have drove away into the sunset, but he decided to tell Walter off, and this eventually led to him getting shot. And same thing with Jimmy McGill in this situation. Jimmy's such a smart, thoughtful character. He really thinks about all of his actions, and his emotions got the best of him. If he just listened to Kim and sat on the tape and did nothing and didn't do anything, he would have gotten away with it. But in his fit of rage, he fell right into Chuck's plan. So yeah, I thought this episode was really good in the end. I was a little worried in the beginning. It was moving a little slow in the beginning. They were introducing a lot of new mysteries. I was wondering how long it would take to reveal these mysteries, especially in the beginning. But by the end of the episode, I thought this was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to episode 3. Last thing I forgot to mention was the little bit of a cliffhanger we got at the end of this episode with the cell phone in the middle of the road. in addition to us being introduced back to Victor, another character being brought back from the Breaking Bad universe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in regards to the cell phone and Mike and Gus, that theme and that plot going forward. But I'm really excited for the next episode of Better Call Saul, and I really hope you enjoyed this review. My name is Anton Jackson, and thank you very much for watching.